Top 10 2025 albums. Let's go. 2025 has been a strange year. I wasn't initially blown away by a lot of albums, especially some that made this list, but music this year grew on me a lot. It also feels like almost every artist that I'm already a fan of dropped this year, but not too many managed to make like amazing list-topping albums, but some did. So here are my favorite albums of 2025. But first, honorable mentions. Salvation by Rebecca Black. Definitely one of my favorite projects overall of the year, but for the sake of the list, I'm classifying it as an EP. It's just non-stop electropop, dance pop fun, and I'm looking forward to a full-length album from her. Next, Afterglow by FK Twigs. Her second project of the year, another amazing album that takes a really refreshing direction within her EDM era. Super consistent, and it's not much worse than EUSEXUA for me. I just didn't want to put two Twigs albums in the top 10. Next is dewCLAWS by Galen, Tipton, and Shmu, which is a glitchy joyride collab album that plays around with certain pop conventions, but also just nukes them into the ground sometimes for some really delightful, deconstructed, unstructured glitch pop electronic tracks.
This is so random, but I have to throw in another honorable mention because I don't have time to rank this, but Tether by Annahstasia is absolutely just blowing me away. So I'm putting it in the honorable mentions. It would have made the top 10 if I had more time. It's a gorgeous, soulful folk record that honestly, Annahstasia is probably the best vocalist of the year.
And lastly, Revengeseekerz by Jane Remover. It just barely didn't make the cut. It's a front-to-back hardcore EDM affront that just challenges the listener in a way that rage music rarely tends to do. Now for the top 10. Number 10, Only Dust Remains by Backxwash. Only Dust Remains is a really special album. Backxwash's background, both ethnically and personally, leads to her vocal style being utterly unique among the rap landscape. And on top of that, her very emotional style of rapping just makes this album much more gripping. The experimental hip-hop production is very harsh and is influenced by a lot of electronic instrumentation. Think of artists like JPEG Mafia and what they've done in the past. However, there's a certain anger that permeates throughout her rapping and also the instrumentals on this album, and it reflects on both her inner conflict that she details in the album, but also conflict in the world that people just tend to ignore. This is a very political album. Her politics are laid out bluntly in front of you with memorable lyrical schemes like the never mention the blank scheme on History of Violence, or the fiery repetition of Wake the Fuck Up on the song Wake Up. Her emotions also take the forefront of topics as self-deprecation plays a really major role on this album, with the second half of Wake Up, a song like Undesirable, or this sort of ascension to death on Ninth Heaven. This album is super commendable to me because it really takes guts to be so emotionally vulnerable and just gutsy with the politics on here. Certain tracks on this album had an emotional impact on me that not many other albums this year did. I will say that after the song History of Violence, the album does slow down a bit, but that's not to discount the fascinating work on the rest of this album. Number 9. A City Drowned in God's Black Tears by Infinity Knives and Brian Ennels. This was a really sneaky pick for me. It's another extremely political rap album that takes influence from that harsh electronica and rap. I'd say even more influenced by JPEG Mafia than Backxwash is. However, the genre diversity on this track is ridiculous and surprising. In between the rap songs lies this one sprawling post-metal title track and the gently nostalgic Travoga, with the album closing on a really neat folk song. Going back to the rap, the duo here shows their colors immediately on the intro track, angrily spewing their distaste for our current political economy in such a blunt fashion that I've really not heard before in rap. He calls out politicians and celebrities, and sometimes it misses, but you also do get hilarious lyrics that have a lot of underlying truth to them. This album is just a total treat, and it's flying under the radar. It's for sure worth the listen if you're already a fan of experimental hip-hop and you don't mind political rap that really just screams in your face. Number 8, Let God Sort 'Em Out by Clipse. This one took a bit to grow on me. My first couple of listens I wasn't totally impressed. Pharrell's singing is pretty abhorrent towards the album, and the production style gets a bit stale towards the end, but the album did grow on me and it hit. You could tell me that any of the first 5 tracks are your favorite rap song of the year, and I wouldn't bat an eye because the quality is so consistent. There's also some sneakier hits on this album, like the title track and FICO on the back half. For the production, the drums are elite throughout this whole album, as Pharrell still has the chops when it comes to production. Malice and Pusha T are back at their prime, nailing these more modern beats and not drowning like some older rappers tend to do in modern times. Malice's verse on So Be It is an extreme highlight, and the features throughout this album are also great. Pusha T also does his thing, but it's more impressive for me to see Malice back at prime form because Pusha T has been doing his thing for years and years and years. Seeing Malice come back after such a long break is so impressive to me. This one has been and will stay in rotation, and I'm so glad that Clipse is reunited. Number 7, Lotus by Little Simz. Little Simz has had an odd year. Her producer slash friend Inflow really betrayed her, not paying her hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of royalties, pounds of royalties, which broke up their partnership in music and their friendship in real life. And Simz channels this emotion on Lotus in a way that she hasn't before, taking influence from the British post-punk scene on the diss track Thief and the track Enough, but she also floats into these more melancholy introspective tracks like Blue and Lonely. Even with a lull in the middle and the studio version of the song Young not really blowing me away, this album stays extremely consistent and diverse. If you're already a little Simz fan, you know what you're getting into here, but that doesn't take away from the pure quality that this album is. Some of her best tracks are on here. Only has some gorgeous production, especially with the drums. Free is a really uplifting track with an awesome rhyme scheme at the end, and Blood is a conceptual track a la We Cry Together, where she fights with her brother, and also the title track features Simz at her absolute peak. This album is totally worth the listen. Little Simz never misses. Speaking of an artist that never misses, number 6, Magic Alive by McKinley Dixon. Dixon once again delivers with another sprawling jazz rap masterpiece. At first, I wasn't too impressed with this album. It was obviously great, but it felt a bit busy to me, and I preferred his previous work, Beloved Paradise Jazz, a little more. However, this album has grown a lot on me since June, and is now my pick for best rap album of the year. The storytelling on here is astonishing, especially with McKinley Dixon maintaining his usual stream of consciousness style of rapping. His ponderances on death are more potent than ever, and there are some really standout tracks here. Listen Gentle was my second favorite song of the year, and Run 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 Part 2 really lives up to the hype of the first track. Also, the outro on this is gorgeous, featuring one of the best guest verses of the year from Blue, where he raps from the perspective of a poster on McKinley Dixon's wall, validating McKinley Dixon's projects through some clever bars citing them. The production is a bit improved from his last project, even if it's a little busy at times, and live jazz instrumentation on rap will never miss. Dixon is definitely one of the best rappers out right now, so don't miss out on this. Number 5, Darkskin Homies with Lightskin Problems by the Sidepieces, which is made up of Heaven Souls and Stickerbush. This is a really weird album. I've had my eye on it for a while, but only first listened to it in October, and I really wish I listened to it sooner. It's easily the most experimental album of the year, and I doubt you'll find something more unique and as crazy as this project. It's this really grand collage of sounds and genres that combines into some of the most unique cuts ever, like with Southern style Lemon Peppers. You have some traditional sort of drugged out SoundCloud style rap songs like with Back in Action, but then some alternative R&B cuts a la Devin Hendrix with I Am Not Your Savior. The sample work on this album is absurdly good, especially considering the depth of genres they tackle with said sampling, rap, R&B, electronica. I will say that this album is certainly divisive. If I showed this to 10 people and not a single person said they hated it with all of their guts, someone would be lying in that room. It's certainly not for everyone, but if you can appreciate the aesthetic of that's the album I would have made when I was 19, and you want that feeling of, oh, you'll never know what's coming next, you will hopefully love this album, because you never will know what's coming next. And for the album that totally snuck up on me, number 4, Lonely People with Power. If you know me, you know the genres I just generally dislike. 3 of those being shoegaze, post-rock, and metal. I'm not saying those are all bad genres. I like certain albums from all of those genres now, but they don't click with me as often as other styles of music. So you'd think an album combining all of those genres with really raspy, harsh vocal performances would not be for me. I was wrong. It was for me. I listened to this expecting to hate it, but I loved it. There are certain albums that just feel theatrical, like you're sitting down in a theater watching a high-class feature film, and this is one of those rare albums, and I love it for that. The drums are electric, the vocal performances are addicting, everything just fires on all cylinders. People just say that when they don't know what they're saying. I'm no metal expert, but I can say I adored this album, even if it's not something I conventionally or often listen to. Now for the top 3. Number 3, The Death of Music by Galen Tipton. I was hyped for this album the very day it was announced. You Like Music, which was a collab project between Galen Tipton and Death Dynamic Shroud's Keith Rankin, was a top 5 album for me last year. So when Galen Tipton said, hey, I'm doing a spiritual successor to that, I was absolutely ecstatic. Especially when every single released prior to this album was just absolutely fire, I was even more hyped. And yeah, it totally exceeded expectations for me. DJ Galen maintains that manic style of vocal chopping over just a variety of clubby beats like Footwork and Jersey Club. That harsh style of deconstructed club is done so perfectly here, and every track is just a joy to dance to. There could be a little more variety sound-wise, but it's hard to ask for that, especially when an off track could totally just kill the vibe of the album. The Death of Music is 30 minutes of pure bliss, and I hope it doesn't fly under the radar, especially for my fellow EDM nerds out there. Number 2. This is one that really took me by surprise, but Decadent Stress Chamber by Giant Claw. This is an album that I knew I would like, but I didn't expect to like it this much. I got really bored one night and I'm like, oh look, Keith Rankin dropped tonight. I was blown away by the masterful glitch pop electronic compositions that Rankin has just grown to master. There's really not a single dud on this album. There are more vast, progressive tracks like the intro Pulled Me in Dark, but also quick glitch pop hits like Desire, Despair. Rankin improves upon that Faith and Persona style of production, adding a rougher post-industrial texture to the soundscape. The sample work on this is once again fantastic, and honestly the mix is gorgeous as well. I'm not someone who cares too much about mixing. I only really notice it when it's either abhorrent or fantastic, and this is an album where it is fantastic. I'm a little sad that Keith Rankin has said he's not going to do this style of glitch pop anymore, but if there's any album to cap off such a prolific era, it would be this one, so much love. Now, number one, if you know me, you know it had to be EUSEXUA by FKA Twigs. I've never given a 10 out of 10 out on my first listen to an album, except for this. It is the only exception and still is the only exception to that. There's not a single miss here for me, especially with such a great variety of tracks. The title track is just this masterpiece of trance that highlights Twigs' singing and songwriting abilities. Drums of Death proves that she can nail even harsher styles. And there's also plenty of fantastic EDM tracks here as well, none of which get boring due to the atmosphere built around them, like the sort of subdued first half of Keep It, Hold It. Even the slower tracks are fantastic, like Sticky, the more sensual 24-Hour Dog, and the uplifting Wanderlust. Even Childlike Things through this strange Northwest verse has some really fun, campy instrumentation and vocal performances that just work for me, even if it's like a guilty pleasure listen. It was certainly my most listened to album of the year, and for good reason, because it might even be my favorite FKA Twigs project over Capri Songs. I also want to mention the other version of this album, As Perfectly, is another great track, and Lonely But Exciting Road is another uplifting masterpiece of an outro from Twigs. EUSEXUA is so fresh and it's so fantastic, and it's even a bit misunderstood. Perhaps my favorite artist delivering my album of the year. Much love to Twigs in the Skullet era. That wraps 2025. What was your favorite album of the year? My goal for next year is to do more reviews. Maybe I'll lean into some other stuff too, like movies, or I have this idea to do like Bandcamp, quarterly breakdowns. Anyways, much love to everyone who watched this and my other stuff. Go check some of these albums out. You will not regret it, and see you in 2026.